Very shocking news. Yesterday in Liverpool, a man drove his car through a crowd of football fans, nearly killing people. Almost 50 people were injured, including 4 children, after this car ran straight through this crowd. Within 2 hours of this driver ploughing his car in this crowd of football fans, an arrest has been made of a 53-year-old British white male. There were hundreds and hundreds, thousands of fans on the streets of Liverpool celebrating, enjoying their time, when all of a sudden, chaos. It was pure chaos when this guy decided to drive his car directly into people. The police are not treating this incident as terrorist related. The Prime Minister Keir Starmer has come out with a statement saying the whole country stands with Liverpool after scenes of joy turned into utter horror and devastation on Monday night.
Sleep talkers, yeah, y'all need to start sleeping by yourselves. My husband has upped the ante and went from sleep talking to sleep laughing. Wake up, bestie, what are we laughing at? Your happiness is next to you, afraid. I read this story yesterday and yeah, I have to share it with you. My daughter used to sleepwalk. We would wake up at night and she would be silently standing at the door. I would say to her, "Sweetie, what's up?" And she would never respond. Once, as my wife and I were sleeping, we heard a stomp stomp. She went to the toilet and closed the door. We kept lying there and waiting for her to come back out. No sounds, no moves, nothing. It felt as if she had fallen asleep in the pot. My wife says, "Is she sleeping over there?" So I went to wake her up. I opened the door to the toilet and didn't find anyone. My daughter was sleeping in her bed. I felt uncomfortable because of it. And that's not the only time something happened. We now sleep with our eyes half open. Sometimes I hear her speaking with someone, and it is impossible to understand what she is saying. Then she'll get up and walk as if someone was holding her hand and leading her. Once, when she was walking and talking to this someone, she passed by our room and went to the hallway. I jumped out of the bed and rushed towards her. At the end of the corridor, she woke up and started to shout, "Daddy, Daddy." She got scared because it was dark. I tried to reach her, but my legs couldn't move. It was as if they were glued to the floor. We took her to our bed until the morning. Guys, it was really scary. When I recall this moment, I still go into a cold sweat. Why are y'all sleep talkers so scary? And they don't even be saying something sweet or cute like, "Oh, I'm petting my dog," or "Oh." No, y'all be pointing and asking us what's there. My older brother would not only sleep talk, but he would sleepwalk. There was one time, because we all slept in one bed at one point, he was trying to get out of the window. He would have dropped down. Y'all are scary. Stay away from me. But I married one. Oh my god, I married one.
What would you do if something grabbed your feet in the middle of the night? If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and recently I opened an email where everyone who finds this page can send me their ghost stories. And let me tell you, these are genuinely terrifying, and that's why the light is on. And if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I normally film these in the dark. But what y'all don't know is that I usually film them during the daytime, and it is currently nighttime, so that's a no-brainer to keep the lights on for me. And I think this story in particular highlights a very common thought that everyone has at night, especially when they're talking about things that are terrifying. So let's get into it. The story comes from someone who would like to remain anonymous, and for obvious reasons, I'm going to respect that. This person begins their email by telling me that when she was 5 years old, her and her family went to Turkey and they were staying in a hotel. She was sharing a bed with her mom and her dad, so she was in the middle, and her 3 other brothers were in separate rooms. And on the first night, she wakes up and looks over at the doorway and sees a full-body white apparition standing there. And being 5 years old and not really understanding any of that stuff, she just thought it was her dad's shirt hanging up and maybe it was her eyes playing a trick on her. But when she woke up, the shirt wasn't there anymore. The following night, one of her brothers was begging to sleep with her parents. And as they got older, it was revealed that he had seen someone looking at him from the wardrobe in the room that he was staying in. And there was a hammer on the chair right next to his bed. And when he looked away and looked back, the hammer was gone. Mind you, he was staying by himself, so you get the fear. And on the very last night, her mom felt someone grabbing her feet and woke up to her daughter, the person who sent me this email, thrashing around at the end of the bed like something had dragged her down the bed. And the girl who sent me this email says that she does not remember that because she was so young and so scared. And maybe it's because I have experienced something in a hotel room. Maybe it's because my sister was verbalizing scary stuff like that when she was younger. I don't know. I don't know why anything with a child or a child verbalizing that they have seen or felt things freaks me out so much, but it does. And the common fear I was alluding to is something grabbing your feet in the middle of the night, because I have seen a couple videos of people talking about not wanting their feet out because then something could grab their feet. I have thought it, you have probably thought it too. I don't take risks, hence the light being on this time. But anyways, that's gonna do it for me. Stay tuned for my ghost stories.
This is the chilling final photo of this woman sent minutes before vanishing. This is the disturbing murder case of Anne Faber. It was the 29th of September 2017. Anne Faber was a beautiful 25-year-old woman from the Netherlands. She was described as passionate, intelligent and warm. She really liked to keep active, and on the day in question she was on a bike ride. This was on the holiday park Horsterwald in Zeewolde. Now, during her bike ride, probably the most annoying thing ever happened. There was a massive downpour of rain. This really scuppered her plans, and she had quite a good sense of humour, so she decided to snap a photo and send it to her boyfriend. At around 6:50 p.m, he received the photo and would never hear from her again. Alarm was raised after Anne failed to return home that day. It was getting darker and darker and colder, and obviously had been really rainy, so her concerned family alerted police. They were absolutely frantic by the end of the evening, and loved ones all began desperately searching the area, but there was still no sign of Anne. Police began a thorough search for any kind of clues as to her whereabouts, and on the 3rd of October, a worrying discovery was made. It was Anne's coat. We all know that it was rainy at the point that she vanished, so why would she have taken her coat off? It just didn't make sense. And then 2 days later, another concerning discovery. It was Anne's bike. Then days later, her backpack and clothing were found. Investigators really knew that the chances of finding her alive now were very slim. Anne had been missing for an agonizing 2 weeks when her body was finally discovered. She'd been murdered. Police sent her clothing off for DNA analysis and matched it to a 27-year-old man. This was Michael Ponhouse. Now, Michael was known in the area for being a convicted S-offender. He'd been held in a psychiatric institution in Den Dolder and was being prepared for his return to society. This was after a long prison sentence. He'd actually been sentenced to 12 years in prison in 2012 for R-ing 2 random teenage girls in 2010. Now, in the Netherlands, S-offenders receiving treatment at psychiatric facilities are required to have constant supervision outside of the facility. However, infuriatingly, due to some so-called privacy laws, Michael was allowed to withhold the fact that he'd been convicted of such a brutal crime. And for this reason, he was infuriatingly not seen as a threat to society. The facility actually allowed him to leave without supervision, and he even had access to his mum's car. Shockingly, he'd been allowed to leave the facility that day on his own when Anne was on her bike ride. Michael did admit to killing Anne, forcing her into the woods and SAing her before brutally ending her life. And shockingly, due to a legal loophole, it wasn't classed as murder. In the Netherlands, murder has to be defined as intentional or premeditated, and Michael basically argued that he only killed her when she screamed for help. Therefore, he was only convicted of qualified manslaughter and sentenced to 28 years.
I finally found a story that I can actually relate to. I don't know if you guys saw the video that I made where I have beef with a ghost. Although the story is terrifying, I don't know why I get some sort of comfort knowing that I'm not the only one that's going through this. The bully entity. Am I saying it wrong? I make it sound like entities. The bully entity. It's like a singular titty. So this girl says, do not stay in a place that is very paranormally active or this may happen to you. Is paranormally a word? It is for me. So Claudia says that her sister lives in a house that is very active on a daily basis, and for some reason she's just used to it and refuses to move. Things like dishes falling, cups flying, doors opening, seeing shadows in her house are the normal day-to-day thing. So Claudia herself is not a fan of these things, but anytime anytime the family wants a vacation, they go and visit her sister, and they have to stay there for like 3 to 4 days. So this is what happened on the last visit that they had with the sister. She was the first one out of the car, and that her sister had opened the door and came out to greet them. And when she was hugging her sister, she sees a shadow move in that living room inside of the house. She knows that it's not an actual person because there's a lot of light in that living room, and what she saw was like a solid shadow just moving across. As it happened, her sister's still greeting her, but she's like looking into that living room, and her sister notices that she's not looking at her, she's looking inside. So in the moment, her sister's like, hey, what's wrong? Why are you looking over there? And Claudia tells her sister, I just saw like a shadow pass by. And her sister's like, oh yeah, it's the entity, the thing that I'm telling you that lives in the house. I also saw it whenever I was coming out because I saw the shadow go in the hallway. So Claudia tells her, how are you so calm? And the sister's like, oh, it's just things that happened every day at this house. So Claudia's like, well, what else happens here? Because obviously she's a little bit scared. And her sister tells her, well, you know, where things throw cups or dishes, the doors opening, sometimes we do hear voices. Oh, voices, no big deal. So Claudia's like, well, does it ever do anything bad like to you guys? And the sister was like, well, if we don't piss it off, it doesn't. So now Claudia, being curious, is like, well, if you piss it off, what does it do? And the sister's like, well, it depends. If it only gets mad a little bit, maybe it'll just pull the blanket off of us at night when we're asleep. Sometimes it just moves the bed, or sometimes it'll talk in our ear so that we can wake up from our sleep. So after hearing that, Claudia's like, well, what if it gets really pissed off? And the sister was like, well, one time I asked it to leave the house, and that same night I woke up to something choking me. So Claudia, after hearing all of that, she's like, well, how can you live in a place like this? It doesn't seem like you get any peace. And her sister is like, oh, it's just everyday things. And she goes, no, it choked you. That's not an everyday thing. Claudia then says, have you not tried doing anything to get it out of your house? And her sister's like, no, why would we want to get rid of it? Why would we want it out of the house? We don't want to do any of that. Actually, I feel like smoking a cigarette. Do you want to go outside for a walk? Once they step outside, the sister brings out the cigarettes, and she's like, oh no, I don't have a lighter. Let's go to that little store down the street to buy one. So they walk down the street, they get the lighter, and her sister lights up the cigarette and then looks at Claudia and says, hey, you can't be saying that inside of the house. Don't be saying that you want me to get rid of it or that you're gonna do something to get it out. If it hurt you, or if you keep saying that, you're not gonna be in peace for the next 3 days that you're here. We never talk bad about him because things in the house get really bad when we do. I made you walk all the way to the store with me so that I can tell you this because it seems like the entity always listens to everything that we say. So when we go back home, don't even mention this entity anymore, and you'll have a good time at my house. She said that that very same night, something shook her bed while she was sleeping. She said that it wasn't her family playing a prank on her. It wasn't anything like that. Like, somebody was definitely in that room with her and decided to shake her bed. The bedroom that her sister put her in was really nice. It had a king-size bed, and she had already decided to sleep with the lights on because she was obviously really scared. As she laid there dozing off, something turned the lights off and started shaking the bed very violently. She did scream really loud, but it was almost as if nobody heard her screams because she could still hear that her family was like outside the door. When she screamed, nobody reacted, nobody came running to her room. She ends up falling asleep after that, and she said in the morning when she woke up, she noticed all of her family looked really tired and like almost like they had been awake the entire night. The second that her sister sees her, she tells Claudia it's because it got mad. Her sister said that while she was sleeping, she would feel arms just grabbing all up on her body really rough. At that point, Claudia did not care, and she told her, you need to go get an exorcist or something. And the sister tells her that they actually did try, but things got worse after they did that. Her sister's like, let's just stop talking about this. I don't want to talk about it. I'm gonna still live here and just let things happen the way they're gonna happen. She explains that she's terrified not only because of what's happening in the house, but the train of thought of her sister like continuing to live there. And she has not moved. She still lives in that house with that entity. So what would you do if you were being bullied by the paranormal?
I'm sure by now you guys have heard the story of the peeking wife, but if you haven't, buckle up, this one's scary. So the story is about a guy and his wife who've been married for 6 years, and he notices that she starts peeking at him. And at first, it's very playful, very like pranks, like boo type shit, and then it starts to get crazy. What's crazy is that he mentions that she is not into anything scary, anything horror, not even horror movies. So when she started acting this way, he was freaked out. One morning, he wakes up for work. He's making himself a coffee. He's like this, kind of like stirring his coffee. He looks up and notices that his wife is like Hello. Just like peeking at him, and he freaks out, spills coffee everywhere. Like, what are you doing? They laughed about it. He went to work, and then she started doing it more often. The crazy thing is that she was doing it in very weird places. So he'd be chopping up some onions, getting dinner ready, and she'd be peeking from the side of the island or behind curtains. And one time she even stuffed herself in this old trunk. The lid was closed, but it was this much open to where she was just like. On another occasion, he gets up in the middle of the night to get a drink of water. He's there living his best life, sipping his water. She's there peeking at him, of course. He freaks out. The scariest part is that she crawls backwards, like scurrying away because she had been caught. I'm sure this was traumatizing for him, so he was low-key upset with her. I'm sure he told her some shit, and it eventually stopped for like 2 weeks. Well, one night, they are relaxing on the couch, watching some TV, some Netflix, and he brings it up to her and he says, you know what? You haven't really been peeking at me. You haven't really been trying to scare me. She says, maybe I just got better at it. Hell no. And of course, as we all thought and figured it out, it started happening again. The only thing is that now it's not like pranky. She's not joking about it anymore. She's not laughing. She gets caught and then she's like, just walks away. Like, so weird. So one night he's in the shower, living his best life, taking a bath. He's washing his hair, shampoo's in his face and everything. So he's washing his hair, he's rinsing it, and he hears a noise. He rinses his face, opens his eyes, and his wife is right there peeking. Scares him, of course, through the shower curtain. Her face, her hair, everything is drenched, and she's just like, no. Of course, he yells at her, and he's like, can you get the fuck out? Like, really? Grow up. He finishes his shower. At this point, he's over it. He's over the whole situation. He gets out. He's changing. And he's literally contemplating, like, what do I do? Like, this is getting weird. I'm scared. Like, what do I do? So he's there for about 30 minutes, changing, whatever. And he hears this loud breathing. So he's like, oh shit, she's outside the door. So he's actually very scared and wants to look under the door to see, but he's scared that if he looks under there, she's gonna be peeking. Like, he finally gathers some courage and is just gonna open the door and say, you need to chill the fuck out. As he's getting the courage to open that door, he looks at that restroom closet and he notices that it's this open. So he realizes and he sees her eye peeking at him. He's over it. He freaks out. He runs out of the house, only grabbing his keys, his phone, his wallet, and he's in boxers. And he just drives off to his brother's house. He gets to his brother's house, explains everything. His brother's like, okay, everybody needs to calm down. You can stay here as long as you want. Just chill on the couch, whatever. So he's there chilling. Some time had already passed. Kind of scrolling on his phone, whatever. He looks out the window, and there she is, looking at him through the window with this maniacal looking face, like drooling, and just like that evil grin. Like, oh, I literally have chills. I can't. He calls her mom, explains what's going on. She wants nothing to do with it. A few days pass and he realizes, okay, I have to go home. I have to get some more clothes and we have to figure this out. So him and his brother go to the house. They open the door and this house is dark. It's in the middle of the day. The house is dark, the curtains are closed, and the house is trashed. Everything's broken, picture frames are broken, completely trashed. He doesn't even know if she's home, but as he's going up the stairs into their bedroom so he can grab some clothes, he smells this nastiest smell of rot and decay coming from the bedroom. He walks in. The smell is coming from the bedroom, but he doesn't see anything because everything is trashed. Pictures everywhere, their wedding photos, like everything is everywhere. He just goes straight into the closet, grabs a pile of clothes. When he lifts that clothes, he sees that there's an eyeball in there, but it's a small eyeball. So he moves shit around, and there are so many eyeballs but they're animals' eyeballs. These are animals that have been murdered. They're all like, the eyeballs are just all over the closet. His brother standing in the doorway, he starts freaking out. Like, okay, we gotta go. Like, you were not lying. This shit is scary. As he's trying to like get his brother to calm down, he hears that nasty and exciting breath. He looks under the bed, and there she is, peeking at him. He's kind of like telling his brother, stay there, don't come any closer, go get some help, because his wife is under there, and she's like excited, and she's holding onto glass, and it's cutting her hands. Like, there's blood everywhere. Because that's his wife, and I'm sure he still loves her, he's trying to help her up. Like, honey, what is going on? Like, let's go get you some help. Let's call 911. Tries to help her out from under the bed, and she stabs him with that piece of glass. That was his definite breaking point. He ended up ending the whole thing, getting a divorce, and unfortunately she ended up in a psychiatric hospital. I don't know what happened. He doesn't even know what happened. I guess one day she just lost it. But imagine having a seemingly normal marriage, and then something starting as a joke completely derailing into this. This is scary. He dealt with a lot, because I would have been out of this motherfucker in 2.5.
There was this woman named Molly. Now, Molly lived in Sarasota, Florida, and she said they had always wanted like their dream home, and they happened to find it, and they moved into this beautiful, nice home. And she said, you know, everything was normal, everything was great, until one night she was asleep in her bed, and she said all of a sudden she hears her daughter say, "Mommy, I'm cold." And she didn't really wake up. She had her eyes still closed, but she says to her daughter, "Well, if you're cold, get in bed with me and cover up." So she said she felt like this plop in the bed, and she felt someone get in the bed with her. She thought it was her daughter. Well, the next morning, she talks to her daughter, and she's like, "Hey, you know, like, I'm going to turn the heat up tonight so you're not cold." And she goes, "What do you mean, Mommy?" And she goes, "Well, you came in my room last night and said you were cold and you slept with me." And she goes, "No, I slept in my room, Mommy. Like, I don't know what you're talking about." And she goes, "Well, you must have not remembered." So a couple nights pass, and once again she's asleep in a bed, and she hears her daughter say, "Mommy, I'm cold." And she's like, "Get in bed, honey, then cover up." And, you know, she wasn't really looking at the time, so she just feels something get in the bed, thinks it's her daughter. Once again, the next morning, she talks to her daughter, and her daughter's like, "I wasn't in your room, Mommy. Like, I don't know what you're talking about." Third time this happens, and she said this time, she's like, "See, I told you keep coming in my room, you know, saying you're cold." Except when she looks, there is absolutely no one in her room. And she said she just remembered the room being like ice cold. So about 3 or 4 months after this, she said she had dropped her daughter off at her dad's house, and she goes back to her home. And when she pulls in the driveway, she notices that her daughter's light's on. And she's like, what is her light doing on? Like, we didn't leave her light on. She goes inside the house, she goes upstairs, and when she opens the door, to her surprise, there's her daughter in the bedroom. And she's like, "What are you, like, what are you doing at the house? I thought you went to your dad's." And she goes, "Oh, no, he dropped me off back here, and I decided I want to stay with you." So, Molly's like, "Okay, well, I'll make us some dinner and stuff, and I'll call you when it's ready." So Molly goes and makes this big dinner and everything. She goes back upstairs, calls her daughter, but her daughter's not in her room. She's like looking through the house. She's nowhere around the house. So she calls up the girl's dad, and the dad's like, "What are you talking about? Like, our daughter's with me. Like, you dropped her off. Don't you remember?" And she said, like, right in that moment, she had gotten in her car and was like driving over to his house. She turns around, goes back to the house, and she said when she looked up in her daughter's room, there was a girl that looked just like her daughter staring out the window.
These are 10 haunted places that I would like to visit. So starting off strong with the Villisca Axe Murder House at my number 1. Today is actually the anniversary of the murders themselves, June 10th. I just think this is a super doable trip for me because it's in Villisca, Iowa. I live in the Midwest. It's definitely a day trip kind of thing for me as well. My brother went there for his high school graduation. He confirms that it is definitely haunted and it's not oversaturated with people trying to get a glimpse at their first paranormal experience. So it's definitely out of the way for a lot of people, but not busy enough where it would make me anxious. So that's number 1. Number 2, the Goldfield Hotel in Nevada. I have wanted to visit this place ever since the Ghost Adventures episode came out about it. I've always had an affinity for that place. I don't know what it is. I think it's super interesting. I like the story behind it. And again, I don't think it's oversaturated with people that are going to go see that place as opposed to the Queen Mary, which is on my list, and the Winchester House and more famous places like that. So number 3 on my list is the Queen Mary ship. And I understand I'm going to get a flood of comments saying that is so basic. You just said that you wouldn't include anything basic on your list, especially that high up. Tell me one other place that has a turnover rate where people go in non-believers and come out believers. We have so many large creators on this app on YouTube that have said that that was their first paranormal experience, and I'm here for it. I've never experienced poltergeist activity, and that is why it's so high up on my list, is because I think I have a good chance at seeing something move, open, whatever. It's my dog. So number 4 is the Conjuring House. This is obviously, again, a very basic decision on my part. However, anyone who knows me knows I love the Conjuring movies. Anyone who knows me knows I have an affinity for the Warrens. Say what you want about them. That house is indefinitely haunted. Can't change my mind. And I'm trying to see what's up in the house. Although, I know some malevolent ass spirits live there, and I'm not down with the demons. I'm not down with the jig on the evil spirits, okay? I've had my fair share. So number 5 is the Island of the Dolls, La Isla de las Muñecas in Mexico City. This was probably one of my very first real obsessions with something haunted, specifically because of BuzzFeed Unsolved when they were first starting out and because they were so raw with the camera. And they both undeniably were like, I don't know what's there, but something's there. And when you think about it, the curation of all of those dolls for the sole purpose of trying to ease a spirit that may be uneasy because they passed away there would conjure something, I'm not sure what. Number 6, anywhere in New Orleans. I genuinely think that I don't really need to explain it other than New Orleans is a very culturally rich atmosphere that has a lot of origins in the paranormal world, specifically voodoo and black magic, that it's just undeniable. They have kick-ass food, kick-ass music, and kick-ass culture. Like, need I must say more. So the rest of my list is very basic, and number 7 is Eastern State Pen. All I'm going to say about this place is that it would probably put me into an irreversible coma. I just don't like large spaces because I don't have anywhere to hide. And the fact that it has just such a very rich background, I don't know how else to say that. It just makes me uncomfy even reading about it. So if I were in person, I would probably pass out. So number 8 on my list is a little controversial, and I know some people are going to get pretty fired up about it. And that is Ed Lorraine Warren's Cult Museum. I know that it's closed right now and that they're trying to relocate to a new place, but I know it closed and then Lorraine Warren passed away. So it's kind of up in the air on whether or not they're going to even open it back up, but it is, all of those artifacts are housed in one space because of the energy associated with those things. But if it ever does reopen, I think I would go for solely educational purposes, because whether you like them or not is solely up to you. But I don't think we can really deny the fact that they have revolutionized a lot of different things in the realms of demonology and paranormal happenings from the standpoint of non-believers. They were very passionate about making people believe in the afterlife, specifically spirits and evil entities and demons. And I think it would be very cool to be in the same place as the people who were once there, if that makes sense. Number 9 on my list is the Amityville Horror House. I can't say it fast. I literally just looked up how to pronounce it because I was pronouncing it brutally wrong. Again, very rich in the backstory and the fact that the murderer died 3 years ago now, 2 years ago, very recently. Kind of intrigues me a little bit. I'm a big true crime gal. I think being in that house would be very interesting. And again, I don't think there's a huge oversaturation of people that want to go there, so works out for me. And number 10, the Pine Barrens. I'm going to be honest, I don't know a lot about it. I just decided to put it because I read Dense Woodland, and we all got to move out of our box sometime and our comfort zone sometimes. I do know it's the home of the Jersey Devil. And I do know that I don't like dense woodlands. I don't like the dark, and I don't like being out in the open. So it's like a lose-lose-lose situation for me, but I'm willing to take that chance if it means I can expand my mind a little bit and maybe get more comfortable. However, I've heard some really weird stories about that place, so I don't know. Here are my honorable mentions. So number 1, the Stanley Hotel. A lot of people who know me in real life are probably very shocked that I didn't include that because I am a Stephen King die-hard fan. I don't like altitude, and when I go to haunted places, it makes me very nervous as it is, and if I was already feeling really anxious about altitude sickness and I'm there, lose-lose for me, and I'm not willing to take that chance. 2, the Sally House. This is for very obvious reasons. I said I don't like demons, and I stand by that. The Winchester House is my 3rd one. I just feel like there's a large oversaturation, and I think that the only good way to get a good experience would be going at night, and again, I am not down for that, especially for that place. The only place that I would go overnight for is probably the Queen Mary and the Conjuring House, but that's it. Number 4, Lizzie Borden House. I don't need to explain why I wouldn't go there. Again, oversaturation, and I feel like you would have to spend the night there, and I'm not willing to do that. Number 5, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Again, not a fan, and the name of it, I just don't like. And of course, the White House. And the only reason why I can't go to the White House is because I'm not important enough. That's it.
So I'm going to tell you how this woman died, and then I want you to tell me if you think this was just an accident, because the police are saying it was, but I'm just not buying it. So in the early morning hours of November 19th, 2011, 20-year-old Jalea Davis was found dead laying in the middle of the road on Interstate 77 near Parkersburg, West Virginia. One of her legs was broken in half, bone exposed. Her right breast was missing, and she had been decapitated. Her car was found parked a little ways down the road near mile marker 181. Still running, doors locked, and the right side passenger window smashed open. Police say that she must have hit the guardrail and then was somehow ejected out of this window, and then run over by her own car. But the damage to her car wasn't that bad, yet the trunk and inside was covered in blood. And the weirdest part, Jalea was naked from the waist up, and her bloodied coat and bra were neatly draped over the guardrail next to her body. Police say she died of just a tragic road accident, but so much evidence suggests that this was a major cover-up, and I'm personally not buying the accident theories, so let's talk about it. Jalea Davis was 20 years old when she suddenly and very mysteriously died in 2011. She left her home on the evening of November 18th at around 5 p.m. to go and hang out with some new friends that she recently made. Her friends were Kristen, Jordan, Freddie, and Katie, and she'd only known them for about 3 months. So after leaving that night, Jalea went to Kristen's house at around 7 p.m., and the two baked cookies and then got ready to go to a house party in Parkersburg, West Virginia. The two friends got to the house party at around 9 p.m. where they met up with Jordan and Freddie, who were already there. They all hung out for about 2 hours before they all piled into a car and went to pick up their 5th friend Katie at a nearby Hardee's. They made a quick stop at the store to buy some more alcohol, and then they all went back to the house party where they continued to drink and have fun. According to Kristen, Jalea was drinking a lot and had like 16 shots, but to others, Jalea didn't seem that drunk. A few hours into the party is when the night kind of starts to take a turn. It was reported that at some point, Katie's ex-boyfriend showed up and he and Jalea were flirting partying and dancing together, which angered Katie. At around 3 a.m., they all left the party, and it was around this time that some kind of altercation occurred that altered the rest of the night. The original plan was for Julia to stay the night with Kristen, but at around 3:23 a.m., Julia called her sister and asked her to come and pick her up at a gas station instead. Her sister could hear Kristen in the background, and then Julia turned to her and said, quote, "Give me the keys," end quote. The call then ended, but just a few minutes later, Julia called her sister back, and this time around she was audibly hysterical, like something really bad had happened. She was calling Kristen a bad friend and a bunch of really bad names, and now she wanted to be picked up at a different location, which was a rest stop near Williamstown. Julia's sister asked her what happened and tried to calm her down, but all Julia said was that she would tell her everything when they were together. But sadly, Julia never got the chance to tell her, because within 15 minutes, she would be killed under extremely mysterious circumstances. Her sister tried driving out to the rest stop, but she couldn't find Julia, and she even tried calling her a few times and got no response. So she called Kristen, the last known person to be with her, but she too said that she didn't know where Julia went after they split up. During this period of 15 minutes, 3 911 calls would be placed, and this is when things start to get strange. So at 3:48 a.m., a truck driver called 911 to report a possible car accident. He found a car near mile marker 181 on Interstate 77, motionless but still running. The back end of it, though, was covered in blood. He got out of his car and walked a little bit further down the road and told the operator that he could see what he thought was a mangled deer in the middle of the road. He was hoping that that's what it was at least, but then he got closer, and what he saw was something straight out of a nightmare. Laying in the oncoming left-hand lane was Julia's contorted body. Her leg was broken, snapped in half, and what's odd is that she was naked from the waist up. Her right breast was missing, and she'd been decapitated. This was obviously a really gruesome scene, but what police found once they arrived is mind-boggling. What's horrible to think about, though, is that Julia's sister stumbled across the crime scene before police were able to get there, and she saw her sister's mangled body and head. Something immediately caught her attention, though, as well as the truck driver's, because right next to Julia's body was her white, bloodied coat and her bra, neatly folded over the guardrail, which it doesn't take a genius to know, but if you've been decapitated, there's no way that you would have been able to proceed to take off your own clothes and drape them over the railing before dying. So then the Wood County Sheriff's Department gets there. They noticed that Julia's car was about 1/10 of a mile down the road from where her body was found. Like I said, it was still running with the headlights on, but all of the doors were locked, and the driver's side airbag was deployed. On top of this, the passenger side window was smashed open, and this car was completely bloodstained. There was blood all over the back of her car and in the trunk, as well as in the passenger wheel well, under the car, and in a broken headlight. To make things even stranger, there was a large bloody handprint on the inside of the driver's door handle and on the armrest. Police then found a second person's DNA on the shift plate. To me, this indicates that either someone was already injured inside the car before crashing, or someone else was at the crime scene before her body was discovered and went back inside Julia's car. This lines up with the way her clothes were found neatly draped over the railing, because how in the world would her clothes have fallen off from a car wreck like that? They just wouldn't. But for how badly Julia was injured, you'd think that the damage to her car would be pretty significant, right? Well, it wasn't. In fact, it didn't really look that damaged given the circumstances. The crime scene itself was enough to raise major red flags, though, because first you have her clothes being tampered with, but then police found acceleration marks leading away from a pool of blood and Julia's body. This suggests that at the very least, someone else was at the scene before the 911 call was placed. So police investigated, but it didn't take them long to rule Julia's death as an accident, even with the second DNA found in the car. According to authorities, they believe that Julia was driving her own car drunk and struck the guardrail. They assume that she wasn't wearing a seatbelt and somehow got ejected from the car out of the passenger side window, and then she was run over by her own car. After being hit by her own car, police say that her body then somehow rolled into the oncoming lane and was then struck again by a tractor trailer. Officially, the case is closed, stating that Julia died of a tragic road accident, and the alcohol was a contributing factor. They backed this up with the toxicology report that showed her blood alcohol level as 0.19, which is over twice the legal limit. They say no foul play was involved, yet some things still don't really add up, such as her friends' statements, the ones that were with her right before she died. They all seem to reportedly change a few times, and when Kristen was interviewed the first time, she voluntarily told the police how she thinks Julia died, which didn't add up at all and is just a really weird thing to say. And even though this doesn't necessarily mean anything, right right after this, she lawyered up. A lot of people, including Julia's family, believe that she was murdered and that this was a huge cover-up. A lot of people feel this way because 3 of the 4 friends that were with Julia that night have family in law enforcement. Specifically Kristen, whose grandpa was a sheriff at the same police department that was investigating Julia's death. And it doesn't make it any better when, not long after her friend's death, Kristen goes on to make tweets like this. It's just not right to be rude to a family, especially publicly when they are experiencing such a major loss like this. Julia's family believes that she was run over by her own car with someone else driving, possibly multiple times with how badly she was injured. And one of the main reasons they feel that someone else was involved was the way Julia's clothes were found. They were pretty bloody, but it looked like someone maybe wiped their own bloody hands on them before hanging them over the railing. This is all very suspicious, and then you have reports of her friends reportedly telling other people in town incriminating details about that night, details that they never mentioned to police. It's just crazy to me that what happened to Julia and how gruesome it was happened within a 15-minute time frame, and the fact that we don't know what exactly happened between Julia and Kristen that caused her to be so upset. Some think it was because her friends were trying to keep her car keys from her in order to prevent her from driving drunk, and that's why she said, "Give me the keys." But it also doesn't make sense on how she was hit with her own car, like investigators say. You have police telling you that it was an accident on one hand, but on the other, there's so much evidence suggesting foul play was involved. Her mom has gone on to create this Facebook page in hopes of finding justice for her daughter, and she also has this GoFundMe to help continue funding her private investigation, as well as a petition to get Julia's case reopened. If you feel so inclined, you can show your support in these ways, or simply just sharing Julia's story with everyone you know. Someone definitely knows something, and her family deserves justice. But it's now been 14 years, and whatever happened to Julia at mile marker 181 remains a mystery.
However, coined the phrase, "You can't make this stuff up," might have known the story of real-life boogeyman, Albert Fish. A slight, elderly man with grey hair, no one suspected the kindly single father of being sadistic child murderer and cannibal.
Want to get creeped out? Let's talk about spirits, let's talk about ghosts, let's talk about paranormal stuff. For anyone that believes in ghosts and the paranormal, I want to have a conversation. I have questions and I want to get other people's thoughts. Question number 1, does paranormal stuff actually happen more at night versus during the day? And if it does, why? I feel like I've had more paranormal experiences at night than during the day. Let me know about yourself. I have a few theories about why. My main one is like the spirits and the paranormal are like, okay, everybody's asleep, let's go hang out. That might be a really dumb theory, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Or like, is the veil somehow thinner at night? Like, tell me your thoughts. Secondly, when someone passes away, do you guys think that their soul or their spirit somehow becomes a ghost? Or do you think that's only if they have unfinished business? Or like, is there a period of time where you're a spirit or you're a ghost or you're an entity, and then you do that for a little bit and then you're reincarnated? Number 3, do you believe that everybody kind of has like this psychic muscle or this ability to do psychic things, but that it basically just gets squashed out of us? My friend and I were talking about this the other night, how kids are so open to the paranormal and they seem to see things more than adults do. My theory is that kids are like sponges and they're there to learn and they're there to use all of these new abilities as a human, but then adults are like, no, you're not really seeing anything. It's your imagination, which no hate to the parents or guardians that are doing that. They're doing that most likely because they don't want their child to be afraid or because that's simply what they believe. But I'm curious, what do you guys think? Do you think that when we're born, we have these abilities that are there and ready to use and ready to work on, ready to grow, ready to be flexed? Like flex the muscle, but it's squashed out of us. It's just food for thought. I really want to know what you guys think. With that being said, I have exciting news. There is a paranormal production company called New Blood Universe. They're making 2 paranormal TV shows, and I'm working with them. Woo! New Blood Universe is really freaking cool to me because they go into paranormal situations not wanting to banish a ghost or banish a spirit or banish an entity, but going in and wanting to learn more about it, wanting to understand it, and not just going in assuming that it's evil or bad. I have this theory that those of us who believe in the paranormal or have this connection with the paranormal and are afraid of it, like I am sometimes very afraid of it. I feel like we're afraid of it because we've never been taught to explore it or to flex that muscle. It's always been this unknown thing that other people don't believe in, and it just becomes this scary unknown mystery, and people think it's bad, but we just don't understand it. Anyways, I digress. Go follow New Blood Universe. I'm going to tag them. I'm so excited about New Blood Universe, and I want you guys to be a part of it. You're going to see me on their TikTok a little bit. I'm going to be helping them bring paranormal content to you guys. So come along for the ride because it's going to be awesome. And tell me what your guys' opinions are on all of this paranormal shit. Thank you.
It's scary when people vanish, yes, but what's terrifying to me is when someone disappears on vacation in a place they've never been before. And the last known footage is of them acting really strange. That's what happened to Lars Matank. He disappeared in the summer of 2014 after going on a vacation to Bulgaria. And for some reason, during that trip, he began acting incredibly paranoid. He was last seen running out of the airport into the forest, and this footage is so disturbing to me. Lars has become known as the most famous missing tourist in the world, and how he and so many others have just vanished into thin air without leaving behind a single clue really needs to be studied. So let's talk about it. Lars Matank was 28 years old when he mysteriously disappeared in 2014. He was born and raised in Germany and lived a pretty normal, quiet life. He worked at a local power plant and had a handful of really good friends and a girlfriend. He was living a pretty good life when his dad suddenly had a stroke. So after that, he pretty much spent every evening over at his parents' house helping his mom take care of his dad. They'd always been a pretty close family, but this really made them lean on each other and become even closer. But like anyone in their 20s, Lars wanted to travel and get a break from his regular life. At 28 years old, he had never once traveled outside of Germany, so he and his friends started planning a summer vacation. They settled on an Eastern European vacation to Bulgaria, and on June 30th, 2014, Lars and 5 of his friends boarded a plane to Varna, a seaside resort town on Bulgaria's Black Sea. They all stayed at Golden Sands, which is a really popular seaside resort just outside the city of Varna, and at first, everything was going great. They were having so much fun swimming in the pool, relaxing on the beach, and going out to local clubs and bars that their trip, according to them, was going by so fast. Lars seemed like his usual self, relaxed even, and in a good mood. Although his friends did say that he wasn't eating that much during the trip, which was odd. Lars would reportedly only eat small portions of food at a time, but overall this didn't seem like anything to worry about, so they carried on having a good time. But it wasn't until the last part of their trip that things started to get strange. On July 5th, 2014, just 2 days before they were all supposed to fly back home to Germany, Lars and his friends were at a local bar in Varna when, out of nowhere, Lars got into an argument with some other Germans who were at the bar. The argument was over football, or soccer to those of us in the States. I guess Lars took the sport very seriously, and the argument was serious enough that he and his friends left the bar and went to a nearby restaurant. It wasn't long after this, though, that Lars took off by himself, and his friends wouldn't see him for the rest of the night. The next morning, though, Lars made his way back to the resort, but his friends were a little shocked at his state. Lars told them that he had gone to a McDonald's after splitting up with them the night before, where he was then beaten up by 4 men. It's not clear whether these were just 4 random men or if they were the same men that he'd gotten into an argument with. But now Lars had an injured jaw and a ruptured eardrum, which was concerning to him and his friends because you really shouldn't fly with a ruptured eardrum. The pressure changes on a plane can further damage your ear, so Lars saw a doctor for this, and the doctor did advise against flying home the next day. The doctor also prescribed him an antibiotic called cefprozil. His friends were really worried about Lars, so they offered to skip the flight home and stay with him until he healed, but Lars refused, saying that he was okay and that they should continue on with their plans flying home on July 7th. So that's exactly what they did. He checked out of the resort at the same time as his friends, and then after, he checked into Hotel Color Varna for one night. The hotel wasn't the best, and it was in a pretty questionable part of town, but it was cheap and not far from the airport, so it seemed like an okay option. But not long after checking in, Lars began acting paranoid. He quickly called his mom at the hotel and was pretty frantic, but he was whispering that 4 men were trying to kill and rob him, and he also said how the hotel was so strange. He was so paranoid that the people following him got a hold of his bank information, so he asked his mom to cancel his credit cards for him and to look up the medication that he was taking. His poor mom was really worried about him, and she said that she could literally hear his heart beating through the phone. Throughout the rest of the day, Lars was seen on security footage at the hotel pacing up and down the hallways, looking out windows, and even hiding in the elevator. He was so paranoid that people were following him, but the odd part is that no one else was ever caught on the security footage. At around 1 a.m., Lars Lars left the hotel and returned about an hour later, but what he was doing in that time frame is still a mystery. When he woke up in the morning, he called his mom once again and said that the people who were out to get him were getting closer. But despite this, Lars made it to the Varna airport on July 8th, 2014, which was the day that he was supposed to be flying back home to Germany. Once there, he texted his mom that he arrived at the airport, so this made her feel a lot better about the situation and kind of calmed her nerves a little bit. She sent him $600 in cash, which he never withdrew for some reason, and bought him a bus ticket for once he got back to Germany. But before he boarded the plane, Lars wanted to make sure one last time that it was safe for him to fly with his ruptured eardrum. So he visited the airport doctor, Dr. Kostov. Dr. Kostov examined Lars and gave him the okay to fly home, but Lars reportedly wouldn't leave his office. According to the doctor, Lars was acting nervous and erratic, and he asked the doctor about the medication that he was taking because he was concerned for some reason. It's important to note that at this point in time, the Varna airport was being partially renovated, so it wasn't unusual for construction workers to be roaming about, and that's exactly what happened that day. As Lars was talking to this doctor, a construction worker walked into the doctor's office, which made Lars tremble. Lars then yelled, quote, "I don't want to die here. I have to get out of here." End quote, before running out of the office. He left behind all of his luggage, including his wallet, phone, and passport. He was last seen on security cameras sprinting out of the airport, climbing a fence, and then running into the forest that's adjacent to the airport. After this, Lars vanished, and he's never been seen again. He was eventually reported missing, and there was a massive search for him, yet not a single clue was ever found as to what happened to him. With no luck from the police, Lars's mom hired a PI who checked every hospital in the area for any unidentified patients, but came up empty. So although we don't know what exactly happened to Lars after he ran from the airport that day, or what caused him to start acting paranoid, there are a few theories. Theory number one is that Lars suffered from some rare side effects from the medication that he was prescribed. This antibiotic can induce psychotic effects like hallucinations and paranoia, although it really isn't incredibly common. Some think that Lars was suffering from some kind of psychotic episode from this medication, which does align with his unusual behavior. But one thing that kind of disproves this is the fact that the airport doctor said that Lars hadn't even taken his medication. According to the doctor, Lars never even filled out his prescription, so his behavior, in his words, couldn't have been a result of that. It's weird that Lars called his mom and asked her to look up this medication, and then told the doctor that he was concerned about it if he never took it though. But to this day, it's not clear if he actually took it or not. Another theory is that Lars suffered from a mental breakdown of some sort. He didn't have a history of any mental illness, but he could have been going through a manic episode from something that was undiagnosed. The most confusing part of this case is the fact that we don't know how much of Lars's story is rooted in reality. No one really knows what happened after he left his friends that night, or if a fight really even took place. No one saw this fight, and no one has ever come forward about witnessing it or being a part of it. So whoever Lars claimed to have been beaten up by that day has never been found. His friends back then also reportedly didn't know how truthful Lars was with his story, because it appeared he gave different accounts of what happened when he was alone to a lot of them. Another theory is that Lars suffered head trauma, or maybe even had a concussion from being punched in the ear, and maybe he just ran off not in his right mind because of this and possibly died of exposure. Or maybe a wild animal got him. The area where he went missing is pretty big, and he did run into a forest, but it's just odd that he hasn't been found by now, or any of his clothing for that matter. I feel like there would be some sign if he was attacked by an animal at some point. People from this area say that it is littered with cameras on every business and a lot of homes, so the fact that he wasn't ever captured on any footage after leaving the airport is terrifying. Another theory is that Lars was met with foul play. We know that Lars said that he got into a fight that night, but it is possible that he got into a fight with some pretty bad people, and the situation was more serious than anyone thought. That maybe his paranoia was real, and he really was being followed and watched, and then whoever it was struck after he ran out of the airport. And the last theory, one which his mom believes could be a real possibility, is that Lars is out there, alive somewhere. She believes that there's a good chance that he lost his memory and is just living somewhere not knowing who he really is. This was kind of backed up over the years following his disappearance when multiple people came forward and claimed to have seen Lars in several different countries. A more serious sighting was in 2019 when a truck driver picked up a hitchhiker in Varna. He later found out about Lars' disappearance, and it was then that he realized the person he picked up really resembled him, just an older version of him. Now he had long hair and a beard and really prominent cheekbones. Some think that he could have ran away to start a new life, but I doubt this. You have to remember that this was his first ever trip outside of his home in Germany. He wasn't an experienced experienced traveler, and I feel like he would have felt overwhelmed running away, especially leaving behind his mom, who he was really close with. And he also left behind his passport, so he wouldn't have been able to get far. It seems likely to me that he could have had a mental breakdown, but even if he did, where is he? The fact that he's never been found is insanely sad and scary, and the fact that no one really knows what happened that caused him to start acting strange. But it's now been 11 years, and whatever happened to Lars that summer day remains a mystery.
Guys, I want to tell you guys a story of my experience with, from what I think was a cannibal when I was 15 years old. So I met this guy. He lived in my city, and by the way, he's famous. Like, he has 2 million followers, and he hasn't posted in a really long time. And when I go to his page, people are like, oh, where are you? Like, he's doing a mental health break. No, babe. No. If you look his name up on the internet, it says blank groomed me, blank allegations. I think he has too many victims that have posted stuff, and I think he's paying people off, because when you click on those search recommendations, it's just a bunch of nothing. It takes you to his TikTok, and DMCAs are a thing. So and I understand DMCAs. You can pretty much get anything you want taken down if you pay somebody. So basically, I met this guy. The first time we ever hung out, he was like, you're not wearing that, go inside, and changed my outfit. And before you think, oh, he was dressing you a little bit more modest, no, this guy literally picks out like the skimpiest outfit ever. He turns my crop top into a bra and my jeans into a skirt, which I didn't really care. I was, at the time, you guys, living with my sisters in an apartment, and my mom and her boyfriend lived 2 hours away, and we were all just attending the high school down the street. So I didn't really have much, and he was buying me groceries that day, so I was like, period, a man I can use. And that sounds really horrible, but I was in like fight or flight my whole growing up. So the first time I ever hung out with him, it really wasn't that bad. All he did, though, that was like red flaggish, was like he brought up an ex. He was like, oh, like I hurt my ex so bad, like, and I'm just thinking like, oh, like maybe he like cheated on her, like, you know, like. And so I was rebounding with this guy. I just got my heart broken, so I was like, oh, like what happened, you know, like what's the problem, why? And he was like, oh, like I hurt her. And now, like, I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, oh, by hurt, did he mean, like, try to eat her? Like, Okay, so he already was, like, verbally abusive on, like, day 2 of us hanging out. I was in this man's car, and I was VAPING, and he snatched out my hands, and he was, like, pointed at a homeless guy, and he was like, do you want to be fucking homeless? Like, getting in my face, yelling at me, calling me like a low life, basically. And I'm just like crying, begging him to stop. Like, this man's in my face screaming at me, and I'm like, please stop, like, okay, like. And he's like, you're sleeping at my house tonight, and I'm taking these, and you're going 24 hours without them if you want them back. So he like has my stuff. So I stay the night at his house that night, and I throw up of anxiety, and I get my stuff back in the morning. And I should have left, but I was 15 at this time, and I didn't have like any self-respect at all. And evil enough, this is like the best influence I have in my life at the time. He doesn't want me doing bad stuff, like, okay, so one day, another time I stayed the night at his house, he was like, what are your grades? Let me see your grades. And I'm like, oh my god. I show him my grades, and he's just like, you know, like angry once again, mad, like, you're sorting this out right now. So he brings me over to his desk, and he's like, sit on my lap, and he forces me to write an email to every single teacher that I had a bad grade in their class, and explain myself, and like basically ask for extra credit and chances to fix my grades. And so he's like forcing me to do this, and he's like, if you can get your grades up, I will buy you a SIM card.
but I will just buy you a SIM card because I need to be able to get a hold of you. So, free SIM card? Question mark. Obviously, it's very questionable, very weird. And so one night I come over to his house, and that night he had just bought a ring light, and I help him set it up. And he's like, let's use this ring light, like let's do a photo shoot. I have like a great idea in mind. So I'm like, okay, like I'm down for photo shoots, because he was pretty TikTok famous. Like I think at the time he had like 800k on TikTok. This was in 2020. And so we would do like photo shoots, because I had like 15k on TikTok at the time. So we would do like photo shoots and things like that. So he's like, okay, so take your clothes off and lay on the bed like this. So like helps me get situated in a position. He's like setting his phone. He's like, I will be right back. And he comes back with a knife and a fork and records everything. And then he's like, with the photos of it, he sends it to my phone, and like takes my phone and posts it to my private Instagram so that my like ex, who wasn't my ex, would see it. And yeah, he made me post it. A very inappropriate, violent photo. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm never hanging out with this man again. Like, this is so odd. I want to go home. So he takes me home, and as I'm shutting my apartment door, he's like, can I come in? Like, and I'm, yes, you can come in. Like, I have to go to bed soon. I'm tired, you know? I just wanted to be able to hit my stuff without him getting angry at me. So I'm like, oh, please hurry. And he comes to my house, and he's like, sit on my lap, and he's like talking to me. And he's like, you know, like, do you know who my idol is? And I'm like, who? Who's your idol? And he says, Ted Bundy. And I'm like, oh. That makes a lot of sense after the last ordeal. So anyways, I cut him off. I don't say anything. I simply ghost him. And I'm like avoiding this problem. I ghost him. So after a couple of days of ghosting him, he's like spamming me, non-stop texting, like, where are you? Answer me. And I'm just avoiding him, staying at my neighbor's house at the time, because I had like a neighbor next door who also didn't have parents, who was my age. And he was like my best friend at that time. I'm staying at his house, and I come home to my apartment just to grab some stuff, to grab some face wash, my toothbrush and stuff, because I was kind of living with my friend at this time. And I didn't have a key to this apartment. None of us had a key to this apartment, and he knew that. My mom, for some reason, like out of punishment, like took the apartment keys so that we couldn't lock the door anymore. I don't know what it was about. I think it was so nobody would lock the door. And so he knew that my door didn't lock. And I come home one day, and I go in my elevator on the way to the apartment room, and I like smell the air, and I'm like, it really smells like this guy. Like, it smells like he was in here. And I'm walking down the hall to my apartment, and I'm like, what? It actually smells like he's here. I open my apartment door, and I go inside, and is he in here? And I go into my bedroom, and there's an outfit laid out on my bed. So yeah, anyways, that was a whole ordeal. I ended up running away, not because of him. And by the way, my sister to this day is always like, how, dude, he knew you didn't have a fucking key. Like I can't believe you put us in date. Like, my sister gets mad about it. Like, this guy was so creepy. So even my friend too, my home girl that I lived with, like, she knew about all this. He was harassing me in my TikTok comments, going off when I was living with her. And there was like TikTok of him, like, to this audio where it's like, run, rabbit, run, or something like that. And every time we'd hear it, she would like scream, and she was like, we were like scared because we would like envision him, because he was like this in the fucking video. And oh my gosh, traumatizing. And I didn't really register it until I turned 16. I was like, That's really weird. Oh, and I just want to say, you guys, I was 15 when this all happened, and when I met him, I thought he was 18, but I just looked up his age, and he's 4 years older than me. So,